Well, hello, everybody. Hope everybody is having a great day. Leslie, I see that people have been having problems pronouncing Drake. I assume it's pronounced Drake, but if it's not, please let me know in the chat how to pronounce it, because I do want to talk about that today. Sorry you got into a disagreement with your mom, by the way. So it says Saturday live stream. Boy, I really should have looked at that before I put that up. Um, there are a lot of things I do want to talk about today, and Um, most of all, I just want to thank everybody for, being there and letting me have a little time off around the 4th. That was pretty nice. And been following a number of rather interesting and complex cases. I'm from Massachusetts and I don't even know how to pronounce it. Well, hi, Susie Q. My mom says Draycut. I say Dracket. Drake rather. Drake it. Say it enough and it sounds like Drake it. Okay, well, Drake it. So it is Drake it. That's what we're gonna go with. We're gonna go with Drake it. So as some of you probably know or may have seen, the there was a grand juror in the federal grand jury who leaked information out of the grand jury, which you are absolutely not supposed to do. The rules are supposed to maintain confidentiality with respect to everything that gets presented in a grand jury. And it would have been bad enough if this woman had simply told the names of the people who showed up and testified. Because obviously, if you let people know who is testifying in a grand jury, they can be things could happen to them, and they might not show up. If there was a real trial, so that's a bad thing. But in addition to that, it's just all supposed to be secret, so that if indeed they started looking at somebody, we'll just pick a name out of thin air here, Brian Higgins. If they were indeed looking at him and he found out that they were talking about him in the grand jury, because the woman also revealed testimony about what was going on, he might very well decide to abscond, and that would make things more difficult. Now, he wouldn't do that because he's a federal agent and he knows how the system works. But the bottom line is that that is one of the reasons why they don't want people talking about what goes on in a grand jury. Um, and I thought that was, I was absolutely amazed to find out that she's going to have 1 day in jail and it's going to be deemed served. At least that's the plea deal that they've arranged. Now, the judge doesn't have to go along with that plea deal. He could very easily sentence her to more time. The amount of time is really discretionary with the judge, and it's a federal judge, so he can certainly do whatever he wants. Good evening, Susan from Idaho. Glad to have you here. Uh, Lori Jean from Oceanside. The grand juror, yeah, it was a grand juror, and like I said, that's not a good thing. My wife actually served on a grand jury once, and it was an interesting experience for her. But she maintained the confidentiality of that grand jury. I can assure you, the whole idea of being locked up for contempt of court is a pretty powerful motivator to keep your mouth shut. At least it was for her. Apparently, it wasn't for this person from Drake. Pardon me. So, I've really been kind of amazed at all of the fallout around the Karen Reed case. I'm sure you guys have seen they put Dever, wouldn't want to say Dever on. They're thinking about putting her, I guess, on the Brady list. I think they should put her on there, and she's off on a leave of absence. Leave of absence is probably code for looking for another job or trying to get hired out of state. I'm not sure which that is. She could move down to Florida and probably get a job for, uh, she'd get a $5,000 bonus if she moved to Florida, but she probably doesn't want to do that either because she wouldn't want to wind up on a Brady list there either. And then the other things that I've been surprised about are Yuri being rehomed. The idea of taking him out of that really cushy job that he had at the uh, DA's office and actually making him, go out and do work. Pardon me. I've got something going on in my chest. Anyway, the idea that they rehomed him was kind of funny. I mean, especially after he got up there and said, that it was done with honor and integrity. You know, you can't make that kind of stuff up. You really can't. And then I don't know if anybody else saw this, but Shannon Burgess was rehomed. He was at Aperture, and now, surprise, surprise, he is no longer on their website, and you can't find him on LinkedIn either. And that would probably be due to him having been slapped around pretty hard on cross examination in the Karen Reed case. And I think Robert Alessi should be very proud of himself for, taking on that task because a bad expert witness is worse than no witness at all. And I've also been kind of amazed at the amount of hand wringing that the McAlberts have been doing about how all of this was so unfair to them. Um, you know, I, I don't know how any of them explain that group chat where they're telling each other how to testify or what to say to the feds. I don't know how they explain that. So I don't really feel too bad for them. When grand jury testimony does ultimately come public, though, legal or public information requests, are the witnesses' names redacted? Also, how often does the grand jury testimony go public? Well, it sometimes it depends. It's a function of state law in a state grand jury. In a federal grand jury, basically there has to be an order from the judge unsealing the grand jury information. A lot of times you can get the grand jury information in discovery from the feds if you ask for it. Uh, Sometimes you can't, particularly if there's a protected witness involved. Um, I'm sure that Hank probably tried to get a lot of stuff in the case where he represented Whitey Bulger. I had been pronouncing that wrong, but I think I've got that right now. And so, I would assume that if they take the grand jury testimony out from underneath seal, they don't redact anything. They might redact social security numbers and things like that, but they probably don't redact witness names because knowing who testified is going to be essential if you're the defendant so that you can figure out what the response to that testimony is. Um, the leaked info did not, Jane, anything to do with the Reed case. Well, it didn't have anything directly to do with the Reed case. It had to do with the investigation into the Reed case. So it was looking at the McAlberts. It was looking at the Canton PD. It was looking at Brian Higgins. I assume it was looking at DA Morrissey and his office. It was looking at the people who were looking at Karen Reed. And essentially, that's how they got these people to be experts. The what are I forget the name of the acronym for the group, ARCA. That's how they got the ARCA experts. Um, Seems as though many people with regard to Karen Reed case have effectively destroyed their careers. Not only their careers, but their reputations. I mean, the only people who really came out of that looking great are the police sergeant who came in and testified truthfully for the defense, and Lucky, who came in and testified truthfully for the defense. Um, is this your new red shirt? It looks spiffy. Well, it's actually my old new red shirt. I had not been wearing this one because it doesn't have a pocket for my insulin pump. I always like to have a place to put my insulin pump, but it doesn't have a spot for the insulin pump. So it's a little less useful than some of the others, but uh, I'm glad you like it. I'll put it that way. Chloe was definitely rehomed according to a photo on X today. I missed that. I'll have to go look at that. Will we ever find out if the Fed's investigating is actually over? Uh, if they're not currently in a grand jury, it probably is either over or at least it's been paused. You can understand how they would pause the investigation during the period of time when Ms. Reed was on trial, because you don't want to interfere with the feds don't want to interfere with the state court prosecution, anymore that the state, and then the state would want to interfere with a federal prosecution. So I think that's if there was, if it's still ongoing, then the reason for the pause is because they didn't want to interfere with this state investigation or the federal investigation. Anyway, I'm saying that wrong. They didn't want to interfere with the trial. That was the thing that they didn't want to interfere with. Extremely disheartening. They still don't know or seem to know what happened to John O'Keefe. I think I think a reasonable analysis of that. I mean, certainly a reasonable alternative theory for other than Karen Reed being involved is that something happened in the Albert House, whether it was an accident or, you know, essentially purposeful criminal behavior is unknown, but I suspect that's what happened. Something happened there, either because of embarrassment, fear of a lawsuit, fear of prosecution for negligent homicide, or whatever. They decided that they would try and cover it up so that it didn't look like they had anything to do with it. And of course, they had plenty of skills in that regard because they're investigators. They know how to stage a crime scene. And I think they did a very effective job of staging the crime scene on the day of. But after that, they just made idiots of themselves. Um, they may care, but it may be too late to investigate. Well, there is no statute of limitations on murder. So, if somebody breaks ranks and talks about this or writes a tell-all book 10 years from now, they could still go and arrest people. They do need a redo of that whole department. Um, anyway, that I've been really, like I said, really surprised by all of the fallout from the things that happened in the Karen Reed case. It's really been kind of amazing, and I don't think we've finished seeing it. I think we're going to see more of it in the days to come. I don't think there's probably going to be anything effective done about the judge, but again, it's kind of neither here nor there. She will at some point age out off the bench. She'll want to retire from the bench so that she can be a former judge representing high profile clients and charging $700, $800, $900 an hour. Um, so there's that. Uh, Thanks for keeping us updated and informed. Well, listen, I'm happy to do it, and if as long as I'm providing a service, I intend to continue doing it. There are going to be a couple of days next week where I'm probably going to have a hard time getting content out. I have I have a doctor's appointment. I have a conference call on Monday that may slow me up. I have a doctor's appointment in Birmingham on Tuesday. Uh, and then Thursday, I have to go down to Mobile for an eye doctor. We don't have any, we don't have a retina specialist here in Auburn or in the Auburn area. And the closest one is to my home in Florida. So I'll drive over from Destin to Mobile. It's a much shorter drive than from here to Mobile. And I'll go down the day before, cut the grass, and then go over to the eye doctors the next day. So next week, I might be a little tardy with my content, but I will still do my best to get it up for you. Um, since even Brennan says Karen Reed did this after the trial, would it make it more difficult to charge anyone else in the future? Yes. The fact that they prosecuted somebody else means that the state put its money on the red square and it came up black, and now that's it. They're probably not going to be able to take another bite at the apple unless you get a new DA and unless they come up with some pretty compelling facts. Canoni has less than 5 years left on the bench, mandatory retirement at age 70. They do that in Missouri, too. One of our judges fought that all the way to the Supreme Court and lost. Kyle Wells, yes, she's getting a nice fat pension and she'll be able to work as a consultant. Oh, sure. Although I don't know who would listen to her. I mean, honest to goodness, unless she was consulting on how to rig a trial, how to, what kind of things you need to put before a judge to get them to rule the way you want them to rule, that kind of thing. I guess she might be good at that, but I wouldn't want to listen to her. Um, I used to work in Mobile. Well, Mobile is an interesting town. They have it's less well known, but they have a Mardi Gras there too. And a lot of crossover between Mobile and New Orleans. It's a nice little town. Um, the eye doctor that I go to there is a retina specialist, like I said, and she is just the nicest person. Now, my wife doesn't like her because she does a fairly physical exam, and I think she hurt her eye at one point. Didn't damage it, but she was just kind of rough, and my wife doesn't like to go back to her because she's rough, but she's never been rough with me. And different people can have different experiences. I have not had a bad experience with her at this point, so I kind of like her. Unless the family member writes a book, no one will know what happened in that house. I think that's probably true because there's not going to be an investigation. There's not going to be anything even close to an investigation. My mother attended Mardi Gras in Mobile about 10 years ago. She loved it. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Mardi Gras is it's a lot less, there's a lot less drinking and partying in Mobile than there is in New Orleans. New Orleans is, wall to wall debauchery, and that isn't the way it is in Mobile. Just popping in to say hi. Well, Jennifer, hi back. I wish you and your family health and peace. Well, thank you. You've been so helpful, all this helping us understand how the law works. Hello from Providence. I went to Providence once and had some of the best lobster I have ever had in my life. Man, they know how to cook in Providence. Apparently, they've got a couple of really good culinary schools there, and they farm out their students to all the restaurants. And man, you can't go almost anywhere in Providence and not get a good meal. That's what I know about Providence. Uh, I just bought the book See You at the Top, trying to get out of a low point in my life. Well, DJ Better, let me tell you this. You just have to keep pushing. You have to push every day. I'll tell you a personal story. I've had a lot of sciatic pain the last couple of weeks, and my wife says, it only gets better if you walk. So, the first time I did it, it was about 1,000 steps down the road before my legs started hurting, and now I can make it about 5,000 steps down the road before my leg even starts to bother me. So, you just have to keep going at it day after day. It will get better. And if you follow the steps in that book, you will definitely make a difference. Um, Mr. Ali's attorney getting in trouble with judge. I didn't see that. Was that? I'm assuming that happened today. I don't watch that trial live, mostly because the pace of that trial is very. It's just too slow. So what I do is I watch it on when I download the actual live stream. Um, Sometimes on the Karen Reed case, I recorded the live stream off of there were a number of local television stations who were broadcasting it. So I would record that off on this OBS platform that I use, and I would have it right there. But I just have been downloading it off of Court TV because they're the only one who's doing it. So you have to tell us more about how he's getting in trouble with the judge. Went to law school in Tulane. I love Mardi Gras. I hated in the French Quarter. It was all about the parades and the bands. True. Inversion table works great for sciatica. I'll have to do that. I haven't seen one of those locally, but maybe I'll look into that. That's not a bad plan. When my dad lived in St. Pete, he would walk on the beach every night for about an hour with his dog. He lost a lot of weight and his legs felt better. Yeah. I imagine if I lost about a good 50 pounds, my legs would feel better. My back would probably feel better. My face would probably be thinner. Um, but I've always had kind of a big face, at least since 1973. When I was in the military, um, I had a bad overbite and they broke my jaw. They moved my bottom jaw forward. and they left two little scars on either side of my neck that formed these things called keloids. And so a year later, they said, "Hey, we can fix that. We'll go in there and we'll cut those out, and we'll give you some medicine to keep those keloids from coming back." Well, not only did the medicine not keep the keloids from coming back, it gave me something called Cushing's syndrome, and I came fairly close to dying from that, and it's been a real problem. But I went from 145 pounds on July 19th to 225 pounds on September 14th, and that was such a huge weight gain. I have striae all the way up and down my arm on both sides from that really fast weight gain. So um, it's just one of those things, I guess. But that does sort of account for my moon face. I think that's what they call it. Um, some side there, they talked about not asking a witness something, and he asked the witness to read something. I missed it. I'll have to look at that when I look at the live stream. Um, it is slow. I just looked up and saw her yelling. Uh, I really love to hear you critique lawyers' cross examinations. Could you make a series where you show us examples of really great or really horrible crosses from past trials? Well, sure. Um, actually, both, in terms of direct exams as well as cross exams, the Karen Reed trial was a masterclass. But yeah, I can do that. I'll have to download some video to do that. Let me add that to the list. Stand by one. Cross exam with videos. All right. Thank you. I always appreciate that kind of help because it's kind of hard feeding the content monster sometimes. Trials get over with. There's not another trial starting, and all of a sudden you're sitting around here going, there's nothing to talk about. Um, I don't think Mrs. Ali should have been charged with attempted murder. Um, I suspect a better charge would have been conspiracy, but apparently she did also put hands on her daughter's neck. So I don't know if that maybe she's going to testify and say she was trying to help her daughter breathe. I don't know, um, but the time to have acted to protect her daughter was when he formed this plan to go get her and hurt her. Um, KR is the trial that keeps on giving the tea in the other parts of Massachusetts. Yeah. And it certainly had some interesting impacts in the state police. Um, really, I wouldn't pay those guys to guard a porta potty. I'm sorry. They just they don't know what they're doing. Uh, and somebody says you do a great job, very thoughtful and informative commentary. And then then I say that about the porta potty. Sorry, sometimes I just go for the cheap jokes. I'm sorry. It's just that's my personality. I've always been that way. Uh, I'm hoping my appointments go well too. Thank you very much for that. My favorite closing arguments are AJ in the Reed case, C. Vasquez in the Depp case. Yes, Vasquez was tremendous. And Martinez in the Arias case. Haven't seen the Arias case. Haven't looked at that in quite a while. Um, let's go on and see if I can find some of these other things I was going to talk about. Oh, yeah. Raoul Valley. Now, there is a guy that I honestly thought they were going to convict him. I thought they were going to convict him not so much because I felt like he was really guilty of murder. I just felt like the state had done a really good job of laying out, what had happened. And I do think they would have succeeded in that if he had not testified. I think his testimony is what sealed the deal for him. Now, they could still get him on reckless conduct, and they've been talking about maybe going back and, trying him on those counts that were not decided. I would hope that they wouldn't do that. But if they do, they do, and he's got really good counsel. Um, I did expect them to convict partly because I've spent some time in Connecticut. I was the director of at Mount Sinai Hospital in Hartford for about 8 months. About 6 months in, um, they fired my boss and they said they were laying off about 20% of the staff. And I saw the handwriting on the wall and left. But the thing about Connecticut is if it wasn't invented there, it doesn't exist. And it's kind of the way I think they feel there. They sort of have an attitude about things, and they're very much like the rest of the East Coast in that they don't like the idea of self-defense. They put a lot of restrictions on self-defense, and I'm glad they actually never got to that issue in that case because I think the intent solved the problem for them. Um, I haven't looked at the Walsh trial. I don't. You'll have to help me. Has that been tried yet? I haven't seen it. If it has, the Allies must be held accountable. You are not in Iraq anymore. You cannot kill your offspring in the U.S. I agree. Absolutely true. When you come here, you obey our laws or you go home. And it is a tragic case. And I hope it. Uh, oh, the Kentucky sheriff and the judge. What a weird one that is. We'll have to see how that's going to go. On the Rowlett Valley case, I did want to make the point that I thought the parents should have be convicted of something. That was reckless endangerment to let kids who are that age and that full of testosterone and bad judgment to go drinking and thereby magnify the bad judgment. That was just really dumb. Uh, I do think it's utter BS that Fatima can't explain why she was so scared to go to Iraq. Oh, I do too. I'm really bothered by that. And the whole purpose of the rules is to establish is to keep out things that are suggestive of a emotional reaction, an emotional judgment that, you just get so mad that you're wanting to throw the switch on the electric chair yourself as the juror. That's the kind of stuff that it's meant to keep out. The idea that she was afraid to go because she'd had bad experiences there a year before, as one of the commenters on the channel pointed out, to some kid who's 17 years old, what happened a year ago is yesterday. They, it is not very remote in time, at least as to them, because they probably recall it with great clarity. And MSP messed up the Walsh case. Well, Walsh was a cop, right? So, I mean, again, they seem to have a great deal of problem investigating other cops. So it may very well be that he walks. I don't know. Um, let's see. I think that's all that I see on the comments right now on the chat. Um, the Ali case is very disturbing. I think it's more cultural than religious. Religious. Do you feel the judge is biased in the Ali case? No, I just think she's got a couple of things that she's worried about. One of the things that she's worried about is she's worried about being reversed if she lets in too much prejudicial information. But if the state is offering it, it's prejudicial. That's the way trials work. Whether or not it suggests an emotional as opposed to a logical inference, that's the key thing. And knowing that she was abused in Iraq previously doesn't suggest an emotional inference against the parents. It suggests an emotional inference perhaps against the person who abused her in Iraq. But it provides a really sound reason for her not to have gone this time. And by not allowing that in, it skews the jury's understanding of the case. It's sort of like the old story about a man with a blindfold on and an elephant, and he's got to describe what he's feeling. It's hard to do that when you can't see all of the evidence, and they really can't see all the evidence here. Uh, Melanie Little has been going over the Walsh case. Looks crazy too with Yuri and the other bad actors. Well, yeah, I'm sure Yuri will distinguish himself again in that case because that seems to be his tactic. Um, I wanted to ask, have you commented on the Donna Adelson case? I have commented sometime at some points. I haven't done anything recently because that's in Tallahassee. when it does go to trial, I'm hoping that it's not going to go to trial when it's set, you know. Thank you, Susan. Appreciate the super chat. I'm hoping that it's not going to go to trial during the time that I'm going to be gone from August 20th through September 7th. I'm hoping it's not going to be going on at that point in time. Because if it's not going on, then I might very well travel to Tallahassee and sit in the courtroom and be able to come out and do some live streams from the courtroom during the course of the day, not from the courtroom, but from the courthouse steps. Um, and I would like to be able to do that if indeed it works out. But if it goes to trial while I'm gone on vacation, it wouldn't have gone on trial while I was on vacation if they hadn't moved it around like about 9 times. So I'm hoping for a 10th move, to move it one more time so that I can do the live stream on that. Um, it had almost all the same troopers as the Reed case, and they were all doing things wrong again. Well, I'm guessing they don't have Canoni as the judge. I understand that's in a different county or something. Oh, Luli, thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate the super chats. I'm in Valdosta, Georgia. I'm thinking about going to the Adelson trial too. I think you should, Lisa. I think it would be a real experience. If you've never sat in a courtroom during a trial, I think you would find it to be a very interesting experience. And you would, I think, get a feel for what it's like to be a juror sitting on hard seats for hours on end, listening to lawyers drone on. Brian Walsh graduated summa cum laude from the Jennifer McCabe Academy of Incriminating Google Searches. He should have taken a page from the McAlbert playbook and butt dialed a murder consultant. Okay, you guys are doing better than I'm doing in the funny category. That's really good, Kyle. Great shot. I doubt you'll get in unless you stand in line for hours and arrive at 5 a.m. I'm up at 4:30 every morning. I could very easily be there at 4:30. I mean, at 5 o'clock. Um, the rules don't apply to the Norfolk MSP. Yes, I'm sure that's true. Um, I was thinking about this today again. How rational is it to avenge your family's honor by killing a member of your family? I really have to wonder how cultural phenomena like that get started. I just some of this just seems so completely foreign to me. Uh, I think it was Yuri wrote reports about 1 week before court date and lied on the reports when he wrote them 3 years prior and got caught. Well, nobody ever said Yuri was smart. Um, I'm sure he didn't get that job by passing an IQ test. Uh, the Walsh investigation could not have screwed up more, and they were all the same damn clowns. Well, I don't doubt that. They seem to have a large number of those in Massachusetts, a large number of clowns, and none of them are particularly funny. I got a juror questionnaire for federal court over a month ago, but I never heard anything further. I hope I get picked. Well, I hope you do too. I think you would find that to be a very interesting experience. Uh, there are some, it really just depends on whether or not the trial that they were trying to get you in for has settled or not. If it's a civil case, it's a good chance it's settled. Uh, Federal court is where, in many cases, where plaintiffs' cases go to die. So that could very well be why you haven't heard anything. Um, it appears that the judge in the Walsh case seems to be looking for a way to get the critical evidence in spite of the police lack of warrants. Well, judges sometimes do that, and then they wind up getting reversed on appeal, which is exactly what should happen. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to happen. Um, have a degenerative neuroskeletal disease, sort of like the cross between MS and sciatica. Have you tried water aerobics? Aerobics are aquabilities done in a warm pool, great for pain and building core. Interesting. Haven't tried that. I'm 61 and have only been called once for jury duty. My husband is 64 and has never been called. We do live in a pretty safe county of upstate New York. I have a good friend who lives in the Finger Lakes region of New York. Um, He and I have been fast friends since he was in college and I was an ROTC instructor. And just a great guy. He went to respiratory therapy school right after I did, and then he worked as a respiratory therapist, same hospital I did for a while, and then he went on to get his nursing degree, and he is a certified registered nurse anesthetist now, and he puts people to sleep. And he also has his own private plane, and he flies to different places to be what's called locum tenens. He goes and relieves other people so they can go take vacations. It's a pretty good gig for him, and he really enjoys it. Sadly, in some cultures, as we are treated as second class, this young girl clearly did not want to be married off by her parents. Her father would never accept her modern values, just my opinion. It's probably the right opinion. I'm sorry I'm late, was making dinner, so very glad to catch you live. Well, I'm glad you're catching alive too. I made dinner tonight too. We had BLTs, bacon, lettuce, and tomato. Now, my wife had hers on a croissant, but that's a little too Frenchy for me. I had white bread. Sorry, I'm a white bread kind of guy. Let's see. Valley would have been better resolved my a sentencing circle, not a trial. All the participants in the community would participate. Well, interesting. I do think it was kind of a miscarriage of justice to let the other two who were part of that fight club sort of thing off the hook. I've served on two jury trials, and wow, my eyes were opened on how some people have a hard time seeing the truth even when it's right in front of them. It's true. I mean, I've had exactly that thing happen in a jury trial where they just flat out ignored evidence that came in from my expert, and they relied on the guy that I proved was lying. Oh well, you drain the bathtub and you go on. That's how, unfortunately, that's the life of a trial lawyer. You win some, you lose some, one or two get rained out, and every now and then you get a good settlement. Ham and white beans. Uh, I make Senate bean soup in the Instant Pot, and that's one of our favorite meals. Do that, and we have there's a brand of cornbread down here called Jim and Nick's, and we make the Jim and Nick's cornmeal muffins, and we have a pretty good time when we have ham and beans. BLT. See, I had eggs and bacon for dinner. We had eggs and bacon for breakfast. Sometimes we do that too. We have breakfast for dinner. Uh, in fact, I owe my wife some waffles uh, because I didn't get one made for her when we were down in Florida. So I'm going to have to do that sometime this week. Uh, so, did you guys enjoy the sovereign citizen video where the knucklehead wrote that ridiculous deed? I mean, I don't know how you could not believe that deed was false and fraudulent looking at that. I I can't wait to get a look at this guy because I'm sure he's going to try to go back in there at some point. That seems to be the way these kind of folks operate. Um, yeah, I love breakfast for dinner too. Cheddar cheese omelet on the menu for dinner for me. Ah, yes, cheddar cheese omelet. There's really not a better cheese to use for an omelet than cheddar. I mean, it just makes it with the eggs there. Um, I have a air fryer, and one of the things that I do is I make the little egg cups, little egg bites, and I always put cheddar cheese in those. Oh, Yuri isn't smart. He didn't. I don't know what theory means. Yeah, his first Ukrainian's his first language. Yeah, it, English will probably be his last, I think. I made pot sticker soup with bok choy. Wow, you guys are a creative bunch of people. This is great. A little too hot down here in the South right now to be drinking or to be eating soup. I just don't think I could put a hot spoon in my mouth tonight. It's been pretty brutal. Let's see. It's never good to be in waffle debt with a spouse. They never forget. How absolutely true. Anyway, um, land records in Connecticut are so paper, I have fears of a sovset filing something with the clerk and ruining me. Well, if your clerk does not allow you to put yourself on a list where anything that gets filed on your property is you get notified of, then you pretty much have to go there every month and look to see if that's happened, and that's a real pain in the rear end. I made chicken with white sauce, broccoli, and squash pasta. Ah, interesting. Um, my wife makes this thing, squash casserole with yellow squash and crackers and, gosh, a bunch of other stuff too. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what goes into it, but it is very, very good. Um, my twin sister sat on a jury, and when the detective came to the stand, he looked at her with alarm. He was the stepdad of one of my daughter's best friends and thought it was me. Ah, that's pretty funny. Little case of mistaken identity. My cousin grew up in the US and played with the L- Leave, I'm guessing that's Kiev Philharmonic. She knows English, French, Spanish, and from here, and Polish, Lithuanian, Ukrainian, and enough Russian from there. I love people who are multilingual like that. I wonder what language they dream in. You know, th- I have strange thoughts like that. But I never dream in Spanish. I can do a little bit of that, but not much. A lot of times if somebody comments in French or Spanish on the channel, because we do have a lot of people who tune in from across the pond, when they do that, I always go to Google Translate and use that to send my response or post my response. Um, Southern squash casserole, yummo, yeah, absolutely. There are so many great dishes down here. I lived most of my life in Missouri, and I do consider it a southern state, but it is not nearly as southern as Alabama and Florida. And the food down here is absolutely amazing. Um, so one thing I wanted to tell you about, which is not really funny for the people that were involved, but uh, in Auburn and Opelika, there there are more Mexican restaurants than there are any other variety of restaurant. There's that more of those than there are barbecue places, which is it's kind of stunning, really. And the ICE people came and raided all of those yesterday, and they rounded up about 50 illegal aliens from all these different counties around here. They shut down half the Mexican restaurants because they didn't have anybody to act as servers or cooks. And it made the local news, and there were a lot of people who were really upset about it because they don't, they consider these people to be part of our community. But they arrested a guy who stole over $200,000 from the Paycheck Protection Program. He was running a couple of Mexican restaurants, and he used the money for things other than what it was intended. And if they were really interested in, sort of cleaning out all of the illegal aliens in the county, they could have gone to Walmart because I mean, you see them at Walmart on Saturdays and Sundays. Fortunately for the people who shop at Walmart, nobody's gone over there and done that. But um, this is something it's a real interesting issue to me because I have some compassion for people who want to have a better life and come live here. But I also think you have to have respect for the laws. And if the law says you have to come a certain way, you need to come that way. And you shouldn't get special dispensation because you were able to, get across the border without being caught. So lots of great comments this week. This is one that came in from Francis C. Gibbons, looks like. Francisca Gibbons, rather. Why aren't they allowing the jury to hear the real facts? Arranged marriage. Please keep Fatima and girls like her safe. Judge, what are you doing? I hope the jury are aware of how Islamist countries view women. Well, it's not just Islamist countries. Lots of countries in the Middle East, and even other your parts of Europe are women are second class citizens. Ah, thank you. I appreciate the super chat and the subscription. Great job. Thank you. Um, I will never not miss living in New Orleans. I, I don't know. That's an interesting thought. I'm not sure I would want to live there. I might want to live in the suburbs. Uh, I had a I represented a doctor from Baton Rouge once, and that was a real interesting thing. We actually wound up meeting in New Orleans. Uh, and then there's Maud. Yeah. Yeah. Um, you can tell that despite her nice accent, the victim's English skills are a bit superficial. For example, she says yes to deny the premise of a negative question, like, you didn't leave a note, right? The natural English response would be no. And then when the question is complex or colloquial, she has to ask to have it repeated. This makes it, pardon me, this makes it all the more despicable how the defense is trying to tie her up in knots and make her look like a bad kid, while she also has to juggle the judge's requirement that she never breathe a word about the main thing this whole situation was actually about. It really makes me sick. And I agree. It isn't so much that they've kept this out, it's that they are allowing the defense to create this inference that she's a bad kid and that she just ran away for no reason, because she wanted to go see a movie with her boyfriend. And that's definitely not the situation that is there. Um, Visiting New Orleans is best in the winter. The summer, it's going to be 110 degrees. Yeah, I can definitely verify that. Um, we went to a really great place in New Orleans called Cafe Bonton and had the uh, bread pudding. Wow, was that good! There are a lot of good restaurants in New Orleans, that's for sure. St. Louis is very close to the feeling of New Orleans. Yeah, there's a market there. Gosh, I'm blanking on the name of the market, but they have a market there that is designed around the whole theme of New Orleans. And the- New Orleans, St. Louis has a lot of different neighborhoods. The Hill neighborhood is where a lot of the really great Italian restaurants are. And gosh, I think I'm turning this into a food channel. I didn't mean to, but St. Louis is a great place to go if you want to experience a lot of different foods. And if you go about 100 miles down the road to a little place called Herman, Missouri, Herman, you can get the best German food, knockwurst, bratwurst, um, almost, you can get the worst food in the world. Get it? Worst, WRST. They have great food there too, and it's German potato salad. If you like German potato salad, oh my, you can get some really good stuff there. ICE is terrifying. I'm Canadian. I don't need my phone confiscated and to be accused of an otherwise innocent meme or news article I reviewed. Scary times in the States. Well, yeah, it can be scary. The South Side, the Hill, yes, it is considered to be the South Side. Uh, there, there's a place called Ted Drew's. They make frozen yogurt that is just the best in the world. Um, Great food. I grew up there. Yep. Uh, I live there here. Good job, Laura. I know you like it there. Um, People who live in St. Louis do tend to enjoy the quality of life there. St. Louis is interesting because there is a St. Louis City, which is the whole of the donut, and then there is St. Louis County, which is the donut. And then right below that is, I think it's Jefferson County. And that whole St. Louis metroplex, I mean, you can drive for a long time and not see metropolitan area. Um, Strike that. That's exactly the opposite. You can drive for a long time there, and you're not going to ever be out of a metropolitan area. That's what I meant to say. Uh, anyway, I probably did a good thing bringing up food around around 6 o'clock because I'm sure some of you are probably sitting down to eat dinner right now, and I hope I'm not keeping you from that. This one comment really made me laugh here, and I this judge makes Beverly Canoni look like Justice John Marshall. I don't think even this judge is capable of making Beverly Canoni look like Justice John Marshall. But the victim has a right to testify why she was assaulted by her parents. Nobody is allowed to sell or kill their child in America. These parents attempted to murder their child, and also, why wasn't Fatima still in school? A jury has a right to know this. Not a naughty child, but a child whose parents are selling her into an arranged marriage. And the res geste argument doesn't apply as the cousin didn't live next door, but several thousand miles away. Also, good points. I grew up in Jefferson County, though got out. Gun. Another Jefferson County is a bit more remote. We had a case there. They have these things called turkey shoots, and it's kind of like, they have the ball boys in a tennis match, like at Wimbledon, that run around and pick up the balls and run across to the other side. Well, in this particular case, they had a kid that was running around and changing targets. And while he was changing targets, there was a negligent discharge on the count of one of the people who was up there, and he got peppered with shotgun shells. Now, luckily, it was birdshot, so it didn't kill him, but it certainly put him in the hospital for a while. We had that case. That was really interesting. Uh, so, at any rate, I didn't have a whole lot more to talk about other than those things. And let me get back to my main screen here. Um, I really appreciate everybody coming on a Wednesday. I know that this probably wasn't the best, absolute best time to come. Chinese food was delicious. That's another one of my real addictions. I really love Chinese food. We don't have really good Chinese food here in Auburn. We do have a Panda Express. There are some good Korean food places if you like Korean food, but there is a place in Miramar Beach, Florida called Lynn's Asian Cuisine. It's a little hole in the wall, but oh my goodness, they have good food, and the presentation is so great. One of these days, I ought to do a video of all the places that I love down in Destin because a lot of people vacation there. Um, I like this judge unpopular opinion, though I wanted them to talk about the arranged marriage. Okay, it's not necessarily an unpopular opinion. You're absolutely entitled to your opinion. Uh, that randomly reminded me of WKRP in Cincinnati. Um, that happens often to these young women. You mean being in a situation where they are entrapped or essentially taken prisoner by their families for these kinds of arranged marriages that should never happen. But I do know that several people have commented to me in email and on the channel about that happening to friends of theirs. Susan says, thanks for all you do, Tony. Well, listen, thank you for being here. I couldn't do it if you guys weren't here to help me through this and to give me ideas. You guys have sent some great ideas for content. I have about 17 of the days of my cruise covered with stuff that can run while I'm gone. So I will have content for you, but it's only going to be one a day. It won't be like when we do trials. I always try to get 2 videos up a day. Um, just so you know. Let's see. Thanks for coming on and chatting. You're welcome. Thank you for being here to chat with me. Um, Same for Georgia. Chinese food just okay. Yeah, you know, good Chinese food is a thing of beauty. Bad Chinese food is an abomination. It's awful. When we lived in Jefferson City, we got spoiled. There's a restaurant there called the House of Hunan, and they have the absolute best egg rolls I have ever eaten in my life. They had the best Hunan chicken. It was so good. Um, there's so many good dishes at that restaurant. And every time we go back to Jefferson City, which has been a lot less frequently now, we would stop and eat at the House of Hunan. And like I say, I think we know every really good restaurant in the state of Missouri at this point. There was a place south of Jefferson City called Steve's Fried Chicken. And basically, you went there and they fix fried chicken in an iron skillet and they do it to order, and then they serve it family style, and if you eat up all the chicken, they'll bring you more. It's a it's a really good place to eat while you're down there. I have friends who have arranged marriages. I'm generally against forcing anything, but there can be pluses. I know that is the case. Simi Sharp says, I watch all your videos, Tony. Followed you since Murdoch. Oh, well, thank you. That was a great case. I think that and uh, what's his name? Daryl Brooks kind of put me on the map. Before that, I really didn't have very many subscribers, and subscriber count has grown considerably since then. And I thank all of you for that. And I appreciate everybody who shares videos and comments and likes. It helps with the algorithm, of course. And I got a notification from YouTube the other day that I needed to do more streaming. So I am responding to that. I'm going to try to do 2 live streams a week, probably Wednesday and Saturday. Although I might consider any other days. If you have suggestions about what other days might be better, let me know that, and I'll do another poll and see what we can find out. I hope the jury in the Ali trial can read between the lines. If one juror knows a little bit about the cultures, maybe it will come up in deliberations. I think so too. They will get it. I do think they will get it. You would have to have been in a cave, eating bugs for the last 10 years not to understand that there is a big difference between the Iraq culture and the culture in the United States. Daryl Brooks was the wildest trial I ever watched. Oh, man, was that guy nuts or what? Um, I enjoyed doing that because he was such a cartoonish character. You couldn't take him seriously. And it gave me a chance to do a lot of sovereign citizen content, which was pretty funny. Um, I love watching those videos. I don't put them up on my channel anymore because there are people who that's what their entire channel is, and I don't like to take things from people who are using that for their creative content. But I don't mind taking videos from like the sheriff's channel and things that are government operated. I don't mind using their videos because there's no copyright in them. If it's a government entity, they really can't copyright anything. And I do think I add a lot to the videos that I do in terms of commentary. Uh, I get angry every time I see him. Well, I don't get angry. I start laughing because he's such a fool. And, if I don't know how, I guess there is a way that he could have um, defended his case effectively if he could have shown that it was a sudden unintended acceleration, but it wasn't. And he just he didn't take any advice from anybody, and as a result, he wound up with what is effectively a life sentence. Or will people in the jury think she was afraid to go to Iraq because of what's going on over there right now? Well, maybe. They might very well think that. But again, that seems pretty commonsensical to me. You know, I I'm really immune to the idea of going places where big bombs fall on small heads. The guy that has on his YouTube channel who does cartoons of the Daryl Brooks trial, it's really good. I've seen some of those. Pardon me a second, I have to wash down a little trail dust. Uh, the national drink of the South, iced tea. Crunchy frog, I bet that's hilarious. Absolutely. Only one trial that was more outrageous than Brooks, Bradley Yone. I didn't see that one. I have to look that one up too, I guess. Judge in Daryl Brooks trial, Jennifer Doral, one of the best judges in the USA. Yep, couldn't agree more. She did a great job with that trial. And she was very patient. She didn't lose her temper. She put him in timeout a couple of times, and that was when he built that box fort. That made me laugh. I did the Murdoch trial, and I kind of criticized the prosecutor for the way he cross-examined Murdoch, in that I thought he should have done it just with leading questions and used that to show that he was a liar. But several people commented to me, and I think they're right, that the approach that he took was actually better than the one that I had suggested because he got more out of him. He got him to get way out over his skis doing that. And that was pretty good. I missed the title of the book you recommended earlier when the viewer said they were at a low point. Well, there are several. One of them is See You at the Top. That is by Zig Ziglar. There's Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. The Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol. Um, all of those are great books. In addition, Zig Ziglar has a series of tapes. His complete collection is on Audible, and you can listen to Zig himself. Essentially, he recorded his presentations to business groups, and you can listen to those recorded sessions, and they're marvelous, they're funny, and they are life-changing. When I was at one of my lowest points in my life, immediately after my divorce, I listened almost every day for an hour or more to Zig Ziglar, and I started applying some of those tenets, and it turned my life around. Well, that and meeting Miss Ginger, that I think she gets probably even more credit than Zig Ziglar does. But again, it is uh, it is something that is really magical when you find the right person, the person that you should always have been with. And I thank God every day that my wife is in my life, and I couldn't love her anymore if I tried. She's just perfect the way she is. So, Murdaugh was a trip. So much entitlement from him and his attorneys. Bananas. Oh gosh, Dick Harpootlian. Yeah, what a guy. The other guy didn't bother me, but Harpootlian was just he was over the top. I hope to heaven that his appeal isn't granted and they don't give him another, another trial. Um, but if they do, I will definitely cover that one too. That will be that will be worth the price of admission. I'll put it that way. Harpootlian, yeah, excellent. Zig Ziglar is very helpful. He is. He is. A lot of it is sort of oriented toward sales because he was a big sales guy. But all of the basic principles that he talks about are useful in getting a grip on your life and rebuilding it and becoming more positive. One of the things that Zig says is that positive thinking won't let you do anything, but it will let you do everything that you do better. And I think that is an absolutely accurate presentation. Um, I've done a lot of presentations on success being a journey, not a destination. And one of the things that I always tell people is that, when you want to learn to fly an airplane, you don't go to a submarine base. But a lot of people spend their lives at submarine bases wanting to fly. In other words, they spend their lives around toxic people who tell them they'll never get ahead. Life isn't worth it. You should just shut up and play the game and be content with being a loser. And you obviously shouldn't do that. Um, so again, I think it's a lot of the things that are in those tapes and in those books. Almost anybody could benefit from those. There's another book too called Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Matthew Maxwell Maltz, Maltz. That is a good sort of a self-help book too. I also sometimes recommend Winning Through Intimidation by Robert Ringer and Looking Out for Number One by Robert Ringer. Those sound kind of bad, like they're, mean, evil books, but they're not. Um, they're actually pretty well written, and you'll find some good information in them. Although, spoiler alert, he hates attorneys, which is kind of funny because I loved his books so much, and then I became an attorney. I guess he'd hate me now. Oh, thank you so much about the books. Well, you're welcome. If we live long enough, one of the things that I learned early on is that wisdom is knowledge rightly applied. And if we develop a little wisdom, then sometimes by sharing that wisdom, we can help people avoid mistakes in their lives. And sometimes, after people have made mistakes in their lives, if we share some of the things that have helped us overcome mistakes, we can offer them a hand up instead of a hand out. And, one of the things that I try to do every day, well, I will go frequently into my wife's office and I will see the nurses there and I will see um, the office people there. And I always say something positive, oh, you look really nice today. Um, you know, I, I love the way you keep your computer clean. just something to let them know that their efforts are appreciated. Somebody once said that there are a lot of people who go through life, um, and they go through the life that every day the same way, and they are no better at the end of the day than they were at the beginning of the day because they didn't do anything that made their life better. By going in and telling people that they're doing a good job, that they've worked hard, we're proud of them, keep up the good work. That's the kind of thing that over time they start doing it with other people. They become a good finder and they help other people, and it just keeps on propagating out. It's like a pebble dropped in a pond, you know? So that's one of the reasons why I put kindness on my channel and why I put it in every video at the end, because I do believe in doing kind things for people because it has value. And you're not going to be able to cash it as a check, but at the end of your life, when you're looking at that light and you're getting ready to go to that light, at some point you can look back and you can have memories or you can have regrets. And I would much rather have memories of having helped people, made their lives better, than have regrets about things that I didn't do or should have done that I didn't do. So that's sort of my philosophy. I guess I've waxed eloquent here. I shouldn't have. Anyway, thanks for putting up with me. I guess I'm preaching to the choir. I gave two lizards a bath today. Well, you're a brave person. Um, I saw the craziest thing on YouTube, of course, about this guy that had those big Komodo dragons, and they bit him and he got infected and he wound up dying from it. Have you seen the infuriating deposition of Sergeant Joffrion from Waveland PD? He oozes narcissism and disdain, perfect example of a nightmare cop. No, if you think of it, send me a link, send me an email on the channel email, aldewit7@gmail.com. Send me a link to it and I will look at it. That's the kind of thing that interests me. I also wish the pros would fight harder about the door being opened on the reason why Fatima doesn't want to go back to Iraq. In my opinion, there are very obvious reasons, but she also has specific ones. I wish they would have fought harder on that myself. And I do think they've opened the door by essentially creating a false impression that she's a bad kid. Whether this judge will buy into that or not, I don't know. Um, Singing your praises as the choir. Well, don't sing my praises. Sing praises to uh, Creator, whether you whether you believe in whatever deity you believe in. Sing praises to that person, that entity. I usually tell people to give themselves a gold star, and most will smile. Yeah, that helps. Um, I just Googled Zig Ziglar. I'm 100% going to invest in his books. Thanks for sharing. You will enjoy anything written or recorded by Zig Ziglar. I would urge you to get the tapes. Go on Audible and look for him there and get the collection of his tapes. They are phenomenal. Just sitting there listening to, he's a Southern gentleman. And so he's quite the raconteur, and he just tells story after story, and they're all great and they're all oriented to a point, and you'll find yourself smiling along. It's a good thing. Can't wait to listen to your opinion tomorrow. Thank you. Enjoy your opinion. I'm glad you do. I'm here to provide it. No one's buying that she was soft and demure on the stand and frankly seemed vulnerable. I don't know who we're talking about there. Um, Maybe that I'll have to look at. Everybody has been talking about the depot of the Waveland Sergeant. I'll email it to you. Okay. Thank you. Please do that. I would appreciate that. Well, I think we're about 9 minutes over our time here. My dad was the student of Ziegler as a sporting goods salesman. He read all of his books. I'll bet your dad was very good at what he did then. I love nice people. I love nice people too. But What really takes effort is to love people who are not nice, because that's what we're called to do. And sometimes it's really hard to do that, but it's worth the effort. There are some sects of religion wherein women are property and that's it. Mom supports father because she is required to obey him as far as promiscuity. Okay. Fatima is not a bad kid. Agreed. Are the lawyers court appointed? I don't think so. I think the family has money. They were going to fly to Iraq, so I strongly suspect they have money. So I don't think they're appointed lawyers. Um, so, well, um, I'm kind of all talked out. That happens. If anybody has any questions, I'll try and answer them. She is trying to save her own life. She has strength. If you're talking about Fatima, I think that's absolutely right. She does have her own version of strength. Accidentally hit enter. Their definition of promiscuity would shock us. You can't show your hair. You can't go out in public alone. Cannot look at another male in the eye if they're not related. Yes, that's exactly right. Those are the cultural norms where she came from. Thank you, Tony, for your time. Enjoy you. Well, thank you. I appreciate the super chat. Um, Thank you for the stream, Lawdad. Lawdad. That's too close to Crawdad. Anyway, get some rest and have a great night. I will do that. I want to thank all of you who came to the live stream tonight. It is a rare treat that I get to visit with all my friends. And I feel like all of you are my friends. And a lot of people disagree with me. I always try to respond respectfully. Sometimes that's hard. People do make personal attacks. But I love the fact that the people who are really the core of this channel, people who come on live streams and who watch the replays and who comment and always make some really good points, I just want you to know I love you all. And I think we'll be ending here in just a little bit. So um, if you have any questions or comments, drop them to me by email or on the comments to this video, I guess the live stream when it finally posts to the channel. Thanks again to everybody and good night from here. I'm going to hit the ending soon. It will be up for a few minutes so you guys can finish any comments that you were making. And Leslie, I'm glad it was interesting and you are absolutely welcome. Civil discourse and educated opinion. Well, thank you. I do want civil discourse, and you guys are the best at that. Thanks again. Have a great night. You bet I will. I'll have a great night because I know that you guys have helped me have a good night. All right. I'm going to go on ahead and pull the plug. Thanks to everybody, and we'll see you. I'm going to try to do this again on Saturday, but I'll send around something and let everybody know. Thanks again.